here's an interesting project. I'm going to change this high quality but plain black waistcoat into this brightly coloured party waistcoat, highly personalised for Gufu. So the first stage was in consultation with Gufu's wife, was to identify some of the themes and the things that he likes, and then I tracked down images of these that I'm going to paint onto here. It's going to be a bit like a collage of things Gufu like. So the first challenge, of course, is how to get these kinds of images onto the waistcoat. So to plan out exactly what I'm going to do on the waistcoat, I use chalk. Very cheap, poor quality chalk. It doesn't really matter because the chalk will get mixed up with the paint when it's applied and you won't be able to see it. So it's quite a useful material. Plus, if you do mess it up, I'm not going to mess it up, but if I were to mess it up, I could wash it off, no problem. Now the first thing that I definitely know I want to do is have this kid from the Cinema Paradiso poster up here, and I'm going to remove this film strip and replace it with this cartoony stylized film strip like that. And I'm going to bring this on further down here, so it's going to go off the waistcoat there, and then that way I can put in screenshots of some of his favourite, Gufu's favourite movies, Cinema Paradiso being one of the favourites, so that's the plan. Now how to get this so that it's very accurate onto here quickly, simple technique, trace it. Right, so simple technique for tracing, you just put the picture you're going to trace up against the window like that, and you can see through it quite clearly, and then you can just trace around it with chalk. This doesn't have to be particularly precise, just really I'm most interested in the edge and where key features are. Might be worth doing dark and light, so I'll draw around his hair, draw around this shadow. I mean, it's the dark and the light that makes this picture so iconic, I suppose, so I've got to capture that. And then we transfer it onto the waistcoat, which is very, very simple. Plonk it where I want it, rub over it, and the chalk will come off onto the leather. And there we go. Now what was going to be a complicated copying this image onto here is now almost reduced to a colouring in exercise. Find where his hand is, go in the right place. And we should have a film strip in white so I don't get muddled up with the Cinema Paradiso kid later. And you can see there the film strip's coming down the centre of the waistcoat. Now what I've also discovered, and I haven't noticed this in previous projects, but you can see here the chalk and the tracing work beautifully, it's very clear. When I try to draw directly onto the leather with the chalk, it hasn't worked so well, so because of that I'm going to try to use the tracing more than perhaps I otherwise would for this project. Either that or I'll go and buy some different chalk and see if it works any better. So as you can see, it's now covered with these sort of coloured squiggles. Now it's a case of blocking in some of that background to make it a little bit easier to decipher the squiggles before I concentrate on the detail. Yeah, so I've started off with some of the colours behind this Cinema Paradiso kid, and some of the background colouring. And the good thing with painting, rather than doing an actual collage, is of course that you can blend the different images together. So the background behind the kid here is going to blend into this light system here. So it's going to, you can see I've been colouring what appears black here more dark brown, dark orange, because I don't want it to look exactly the same as this black and white image here. So I've just got some very dark colours in, and they're going to gradually fade into this black and white image. It's very white there behind it, and orange as it meets his hand. A little bit orangey under his arm, and that will fade quite quickly into the black. Light bit light there, a bit white and yellow. I've faded that picture into the black that's going to then move into this image. So having just blocked in the background very roughly at this stage behind the Cinema Paradiso kid, I think you can see how it's going to work. I can either touch that up later if need be, but it might be that once I've got all these details in the foreground painted in, I might just leave this in that sort of vague state. It doesn't really matter, it's not something I layer on top of this. So now, as I say, I'm going to try and get this black and white image from U2 album painted in. Still keeping it quite rough because again I can come back to it later to tidy it up. So I'm hoping what you can see here is you've got the orangey yellows of what's going to be the Paradiso kid going into this black and white, which is going to be the U2 image, fading down into this sky. There's going to be a American big sky Route 66 sign, and then back into the black and white image of the Joshua Tree from U2 album. So you've got a U2 theme and a general sort of rock blues road trip, American road trip theme, all sort of blending into each other, and then that will make this film strip stand out all the more bold, because that's going to be cutting through all of that with quite a sharp edge to it. Yeah, so hopefully it's obvious, even though I've just blocked in the background colours, where this is going, and you can see how you can blend the colours together to make the images weave together a bit more than they would if they were just stuck on as a collage. So the next stage is to pick out some of this detail and then gradually add more and more detail until such time as it's finished. So to get this film strip standing out, I'm simply making where it's facing upwards lighter than where it's not facing upwards. Very simple, and much darker underneath. I don't think in reality it would be much darker, particularly because it's see-through and the light would come through it, but it makes it look more 3D, so it works. Right at the top I'm adding a little more yellow, and then to get this a little darker, more yellow ochre colour. Now I'm starting to fill in the detail. You can see here the American Eagle. I just basically finished that one straight away. Now I'm doing slightly more complicated Cinema Paradiso kit. You can see from where I've traced before, it's more or less paint by numbers at this stage. I'll have to go over this one again in more detail. The reason this is a bit more complicated than this is an American Eagle. It's not a specific American Eagle, so it doesn't really matter if it's not exactly like the photograph. This one, however, is not just a kid, it's the Cinema Paradiso kid, so it has to look exactly like that kid, which makes it a little bit more complicated. You have to get the details correct. So at this stage you don't want to get bogged down in details, it's just get the colour blocked in so that it's more or less the same as that, then add the details once you've got them in the right place. Just adding extra detail as I go along. I've still got a bit of work to do. You can see I've just started filling in the scenes on the frames on this film strip. You can't get much detail in a little frame like that, so it's just getting the sort of contrast and colours right, so that there's just enough sort of shape that you can identify what it is. Of course, the bigger ones I'll be able to add a little bit more detail, and I'm going to put a little bit more detail behind here. There's going to be a sort of misty mountain scene there, and maybe a little bit of texture coming down into this. This looks a bit bare, so this just needs a bit of tidying up. A few other points need tidying up, but otherwise it's more or less finished once I've done the film strip. Okay, so I've finished. I could carry on adding detail indefinitely, but then you can see I'm putting the film strip, and I've used just highlights to bring out the effect where it's really dark. Otherwise it's pretty much as the image that I found in the first place, and I've also added some mountains behind here. In the original picture this was white and grey and with blue sky, but I've changed the grey to blue so that I can blend it into the blue of this Bristol Rovers logo. So the idea is it fades back behind there, which I think it does. And the prayer flags are much brighter than they were in the original photo. In fact, there are two different photos, the prayer flags and the mountains, even though they're from the same place. So you can use a sort of composite photo of that. And here's some booby feet, and to get the different shade of blue, this has got a sort of turquoise wash over the top of it to make it stand out and look a bit brighter blue against this sky blue. Yeah, this is important. So black, I haven't used that much black. I've used it for the silhouettes to make them sort of stand out more, and around cartoon characters. But a lot of this work here, for example, where the bulk of the colour is orange, to get this dark colour you can just use blue, and it gives it a richer finish than if you're using black. Black's useful for if you want greys. That's why art teachers say don't use the black, and that's why it just looks richer. Similarly here, where I've got the darker blue, I've just added a touch of red into that to get it darker. So you don't need to use the black at all for things like that. And the colour looks richer and more vibrant. Same here, this doesn't have black in it, this is just blue, dark blue on a red background. It looks black. And no one's ever going to come up here and go, oh look, this is blue. Right? It's not, it's black. But I didn't use black paint to achieve it. Okay, that's it. Finished.